My Creature Commandos review. Creature Commandos, as a TV series, has been a great start to James Gunn DCU as a whole, and I cannot wait to see what's next in DCU's upcoming live action film, Superman. So without further ado, let's start the review. So let's begin with the premise. As the title suggests, Creature Commandos are a group of non-human prisoners led by General Rick Flag Sr., hence the new Task Force X from the former TSS movie, which is now known as Task Force M, to do missions for the US government. And these members include monsters the Bride, also known as Frankenstein's Bride, made for the monster Frankenstein himself. And then there's Dr. Phosphorus, a radioactive skeleton man who quickly became a fan favorite. And then there is Nina Marzuski, who is known to be a moral compass for the team, and the good old GI robot who fought in World War II, and Weasel, a returning character from the previous TSS movie, who, surprisingly to say, was dealt further in the series a lot better than most expected. So these group of monsters are tasked to protect a US ally, Okolistan's leader, Princess Ilana Rostovich, or Rostovich, or how would you say her name, who is a leader of possibly a fictitious former USSR republic against a sorceress hailing from Themyscira, also known as Circe. To share a premise, I would say that James Gunn never disappoints me with any of his superhero movies or series thus far, such as Peacemaker and the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise from the MCU. It has a lot of these TSS elements in it that I really enjoyed before, and some groundbreaking characters, one of which are underdogs or characters that not many know or really pay attention to. And similarly, this happened in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, in which not many of the fans don't really know or really grow attached to the character until James Gunn made a movie about them, which is great. So let's begin with the positives of this show, nevertheless my appraisals about this show. So as I said before, one of the things I liked about this show is how James Gunn directed this show to be one of those underdog TV series where we are introduced to these characters that we do not know, but in the end of the series we grew to love and also relate to these characters as a whole in a very emotional and a very impactful level. All of these characters have a lot and nevertheless an equal amount of screen time and spotlight, so therefore I will safely say that the audience will not miss a thing about each and every character. This series is nevertheless character-oriented, without making the focus too much about the characters and remain forward to the plot of the entire series as a whole. To that case, I admire the way James Gunn sticks to the premise or nevertheless the obviousness of the characterization of these characters, which of course they are monsters. Monsters are scary, they are irreprehensible, they are cold-blooded, and nevertheless, they are not as human as some would expect them to be. James Gunn is able to lift that characterization, that monstrous characterization of each characters, ranging from characters who are indeed monsters, or characters who are flawed to a fault so that they became monsters, or characters who just couldn't blend in to humanity, and nevertheless they become monsters just because of who they are. So as every episode progresses, I came to enjoy and love all of these characters and members, the moments that they built in the team, and also including the human characters that James Gunn involved in the series. Talking about the series as a whole, they are similar to the TSS movies, and all of those elements that James Gunn added in. Not only that they have such mature contents, but they also included some unexpected twists and elements of trust and betrayal, and nevertheless side characters we came to love. As always, the DCU are a soft reboot, and we can expect to see returning characters such as Amanda Waller from TSS or John Economos from Peacemaker, and their characters remain consistent with the previous installments that involved in James Gunn's previous works in the DCEU. James Gunn's choice of scenery, with bloody and followable action sequences, and the music selections, I came to enjoy and listening to again and again, and it made it all the merrier for me to enjoy watching this from my bedroom. And it's clear to say that this animated series is by far one of the most captivating series that I believe most DC fans wanted to see in the DCU canon, in this expansive superhero universe, and I can't wait to see more from the DCU universe as well. Nevertheless, there are a lot of these amazing themes that James Gunn brought to this show, and I believe that it was not brought much in his previous superhero works, ranging from very grueling and brutal origin stories, more or on par with Marvel's Rocket origin story, and even the deaths of children. And if you wonder why these characters are monsters, well, they have monstrous origins to begin with, and I think James Gunn really emphasized that monstrous part of the show, that they are of course monsters. Now let's get over to some of the criticisms I've had about this show. Firstly, I enjoyed this series back and forth and never found any of the episodes to be boring or mid-ish. Despite that they are being character-oriented, it showed that it can still progress and remain consistent with the main story as a whole, while also delving into the origins of each character. However, to that point, I sincerely wish that the main story was given a little more screen time. Like for each episode, half of it would always be about the single character and their origins, exploring about how they came to be and where they came from, while the other half is for the main plot and it switches from time to time. While I say this is a balanceful and great shifting in the series, I would really wish that maybe the main story was explored a little more. Maybe a little more scenes would perhaps give it a more holistic view for the series. And maybe it could be better if they can have just one or two episodes just dedicated to the main story without talking too much of the characters. So therefore it can help the series be more holistic as I stated. Now before going to the verdict, maybe it's perhaps the best time to discuss about the characters which I've already promised in my title. And I love all and every character as every episode progresses. The characters are all memorable and they are very resonating to their backstories. The characterization of each character are the prime spotlight of the show. They are lovable, cruel monsters I seem to enjoy every moment. Their origin stories range from being sad and pitiful to a range to satisfying conclusions as the main story progresses. If I were to rank these stories from great to good, here are my rankings. My top favorite would be Weasel. Yes, the character, who seems to be a joke of a beast monster thingy from the TSS, became a very favorite of my show. Yes, indeed, James Gunn said that his origin stories will be further explored in the series, and oh boy, did he deliver so well. Out of all the origin stories, Weasel had the saddest origin stories I've ever seen in the DCU. And what's sad is that he's that beast monster thingy, but he just couldn't connect or correlate to what really happened or the nature of what his being is. And a part of me want him to get that conclusion. And needless to say, he did get that conclusion in the end. My second favorite is most of the fan favorites of the show, which is Dr. Phosphorus. He's kind of this rat character who has very little sympathy for his enemies, but nevertheless has a crude and charismatic character, making him quickly lovable. His origin stories, I would summarize, is also gruel, but nevertheless satisfying to a core. And then for my third favorite character, it is G.I. Robot, simply because he's a simple character with a simple origin story. Because of that, it makes it more quick and straightforward to understand and enjoy his character out of all the other four members, whom had complex backstories and characterizations. My fourth favorite is the Bride. So, apart from that she's the leader with a dismissive British attitude, she's one of the more grounded characters, having been the oldest and quite literally the sanest monster of the group. Very composed and helps the show lead, introduce, and bring forth the monster characteristics of each member of the team. I would say that in terms of her origins are my second favorite, and she doesn't deserve the misunderstandings that she received that scarred her forever. My fifth favorite character is Nina Marzuski, good character for Moral Compass. Her being very innocent and kind character with a hint of humanity also showed bits of her monstrous aspects when necessary, which were one of her great aspects. Her origin stories are perhaps more human-oriented, revolving around the acceptances and the personal crisis she endured being, what they say, a monster, which is a fine addition to the show. And then the sixth one is Rick Flag Sr. Similar to his son, he's a decent soldier who just wants to do a job but has to be stuck with those monsters. It's similar to his son Rick Flag. And then I would say that he's not entirely like his son, but he's an OG for being able to lead and stand against the monsters as a human. Bravo! And then the last but good character, Frankenstein. I have some sort of like and dislike orientation for this character. Personally, I think DCU's interpretation of Frankenstein is unique from other Frankenstein that is inside and outside of DC, where this one has more relevant, pop culture relevant and charismatic character, but also showing his monster tendencies. And nonetheless, out of all the main characters in the show, this character is indeed a monster, and became a red flag, signifying that not all monsters are grounded or perhaps justifiable in their motives or nature, so they are in fact indeed monsters. So moving on from my verdict, overall, this show has been a very wild ride and a good introduction to James Gunn DCU. The ending paved off with some very good expectations on what we can anticipate in the future works, and then I can honestly say that this TV series is better than most DCEU projects that was placed in the DCEU universe. And I'm speaking that honestly since I also love a lot of these DCEU projects and James Gunn just bring it to a whole new level. And with all these cool characters and the new themes James Gunn has added, and the show's premise of monsters doing dirty work. What is there not to love about this show? I will rate this series at a quick 9 out of 10, and for the level of its entertainment, I will give it a 9.6 out of 10. If you like this series, if you are a DC fan or a regular audience who just wants to see how much James Gunn can offer in this DCU universe, there's a lot of DCU references here and there.
You wanted monsters? You got monsters.
And that concludes my DCU Creature Commandos review. Overall, I find this show very enjoyable from beginning to end, and it can be different for most people, so this is solely my opinion and my review. But if you have other opinions, please let me know in the comments. That is all from me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more future reviews and related content, such as my Henry Stickmin shorts that I've added on YouTube. That is all from me. My name is Rifat Supano, and voila!